Athena has set up the journey and tells Telemachus, if you succeed, you are truly your father's son. And then she helps him so much to succeed.
Hello, and welcome to Winnow, a couple's close reading of the Iliad and the Odyssey. I'm Owen Gemmer.
I'm Isabella Gemmer. We are married, and we'd love to talk about books together.
In this podcast, we are working our way book by book through the entirety of Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey. This particular episode will cover Book 2 of the Odyssey.
Yes. Upon reflecting on Book 1, Episode 1 also covers Book 2 of the Odyssey.
Yeah, we realized there's a lot of setup in Book 1 that kind of directly comes to fruition in Book 2.
Yeah.
So many of the things that happen we've kind of already talked about from a general perspective. So we're going to try and do a little bit more kind of close reading and specifics, because last time we were excited about the beginning of the Odyssey and trying to set up big themes. So we'll try and complement that with a more kind of narrow approach with this one.
Yeah, being at the beginning of this book, it is taking a lot of self-control to just kind of point out the beginnings of threads to follow, instead of just taking my whole thesis and plopping it on the table for everybody.
Yeah.
So take self-control.
So let's just start with Book 2. Again, we're going to alternate doing summaries and asking the opening question. So it is my turn to do a 60-second speed summary.
Mm-hmm. Are you prepared?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the whole kind of point is that, like, it's off the cuff. So
Yeah.
So let's go.
Okay, 60 seconds on go. 3, 2, 1, go.
So the book begins with the assembly that Telemachus called the previous night. The heralds go out, they call everybody together. There's some old guys in the crowd who are like, what are we gathering for? Is there somebody attacking us? And then Telemachus sort of steps out. Athena has made him look extra special. He's like, I am here to sort of unveil sort of my gripes. So he kind of accuses publicly the suitors of all the bad things that they're doing and sort of, tries to basically tell them to go home. They refuse, they rebuke him. There's this interesting moment where sort of two eagles fly overhead, and one of the augurs is like, this is an omen from Zeus, that the suitors will die. And the suitors are like, we don't care.
Yeah.
So then they're back and forth debating. Antinous, the lead suitor, sort of unveils that Penelope's been really tricky, and he's like, either send Penelope back home or get her to marry one of us. And then there's lots of debate, and Telemachus is ready to go on his trip.
And done.
I rushed the end there, but we'll talk about it as we go.
Yes.
You were too short last time, so then I think I overcompensated with maybe too much detail. We'll have to get used to the 60-second time limit. We'll get better as we go.
Yeah, I got to get used to it. But you covered it.
Yeah.
Well, and then the book ends with Telemachus setting off.
Yeah.
With Athena setting sail.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So what's your opening question?
Okay. So, like we said, we're going to, instead of being more broad, we're going to try to be maybe a little more specific in this episode. Here, Athena is giving Telemachus, words of encouragement. She says, Telemachus, you will be brave and thoughtful if your own father's forcefulness runs through you. How capable he was in word and deed. And this is the part I find interesting. Your journey will succeed if you are his. If you are not his son, his trueborn son, I doubt you could achieve what you desire. And it is rare for sons to be like fathers. Only a few are better, most are worse. So, obviously that's just an interesting, thematic thing, it's also something that came up in the Iliad a lot, which was the son, how could the sons ever live up to the greatness of the fathers kind of thing. But she makes the claim that, if you, Telemachus, succeed in this little journey that she has given him, she has tasked him with going to visit Menelaus and Nestor and then returning. If you succeed, then it is a sign that you are truly your father's son. Mm-hmm. If you do not succeed, then, maybe the milkman was your dad. Kind of that thing. I guess that's what she's saying. But, so she sets this up. But then, right, she is doing so much work to make sure that he succeeds. Mm-hmm. And even goes as far as she runs through the town disguised as Telemachus himself and rouses men to join. She gets a ship for him. She prepares so many things. So that when it's ready, they leave eventually. They embark under the cover of night so that Penelope won't know that they've left because she would try to stop them. So my question centers around this whole, like, Athena has set up the journey and tells Telemachus, if you succeed, you are truly your father's son. And then she helps him so much to succeed. And so I just want to talk about, like, what is Athena doing? For some reason, I feel like she is more involved in the plot than I remember from past readings of the text. I had thought that when we left the Iliad behind, it was like, this is all about people making their own decisions. But Athena is doing so much work here, heavy lifting.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to do is I want to read a couple lines in Pope's translation from what you read, because there's, again, some really good bangers. Again, Pope is translating into iambic pentameter, rhyming couplets. And so, he often takes liberties, but sometimes those liberties turn into really great poetry. O prince, in earthly youth divinely wise, born the Ulysses of thy age to rise, if to the son the father's worth descends. So you are born to be the Ulysses of this age, if indeed your father's sort of worth has descended into you.
Yeah.
So that's, like, really both, like, high stakes of like, you could be the greatest. So there's a lot of pressure. And I think you are exactly right to question Athena's involvement, because, it seems like she's kind of fulfilling her own prophecy. She's like, if you're successful, you'll be the best, and I'm going to help you be successful. Therefore, you'll be the best.
Yeah.
And it does just feel like out and out favoritism in a way.
We'll see as she continues to kind of do the same for Odysseus himself. And also she has another, in the same chunk of text where she's speaking to Telemachus, she says, like, since I will go with you just like a father. So, like, it's kind of strange. Like, she's a father figure for Telemachus, but he's trying to be like his actual father figure, who is also guided by Athena, the father figure. There's just like...
Yeah, Athena seems to really favor this whole family. And is willing to help all of them in different ways. Maybe, again, to the point of denying them their own volition or option to fail in that way. Like, she's kind of the helicopter parent of the family in that way. Yeah, which is interesting, right? Because we were continually, and maybe even just me, in the Iliad, I was continually frustrated by how much the gods seem to intervene and seem to almost, like, deny the mortals the opportunity to succeed or fail on their own right, which leads to, I think, questions of, like, fate and free will and determination and these kinds of things. And we were both sort of hopeful that that would change in the Odyssey, but it doesn't seem to, at least initially, have changed that much. Because I noticed throughout, oftentimes when Telemachus is speaking, there's a lot of divine language being used. Sometimes it's a more practical, like Athena made him look handsome, but other times it's just like in the imagery, like he spoke with like a godlike voice or things like that. There's tons and tons of divine imagery surrounding Telemachus's actions here. And so it's very clear he is being helped and assisted in what he's doing.
Yeah. This differs from the Iliad in how in the Iliad, right, we had multiple gods, right, multiple gods' wills competing, right, and in the Odyssey, so it's just Athena's will, just full force, like Athena doing, no one's in her way.
Yeah,
like so that is the difference.
Though I think it is important to note that given the conversation the gods had at the beginning of Book 1, they know that Poseidon is working against Odysseus, and the gods are all sort of teaming up to work against it. So they send Hermes to Calypso to release Odysseus. Then they send Athena to Telemachus. And so because we're focused on Telemachus, we're focused on Athena's role in this, but ostensibly other gods are involved.
Yeah.
We're just focused right now on Telemachus, who currently has Athena as his mentor. I mean, I think it's I guess it's just ironic that the character that she disguises herself as in this book is named Mentor.
Yeah. Though, so like we can still see though that Telemachus is like, he's bolstered by, all the powers, whatever that Athena is giving him, in how he looks and how he speaks. But there is a moment like when he's still transitioning to being a man.
Yeah.
I think is clear because there is that moment where he's giving his like opening speech in the public square, and it kind of gets out of control.
Yeah, he kind of fails pretty hard.
Yeah, it goes. He does a very like actually anti-Odyssean thing, where he puts, I think, too much on the table. He puts everything on the table, and he leaves nothing back. And he gets so worked up that he cries. I feel like that's like very much like this is the boy, and this is what the boy Telemachus looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with that because he's not successful, and it comes across both to the public and also I think to us, the readers, as a little bit pathetic. That he's kind of throwing a little bit of a hissy fit, and it's not just that, but he's also not reading the room, right? Like he is appealing to the suitor's sense of decency, where
they don't have any.
All of the evidence up to this point should say that they have no decency.
Yeah.
And I think, in his defense, he's trying to call this publicly, I think, to appeal to the rest of Ithaca and sort of the older generation to like, we need to sort of get control of this, but that doesn't seem to work. He doesn't really get anybody to really have his back except the augur, Halitherses, right?
Yeah.
This little sign, the eagles fly over, and he's like, I can interpret this sign. This is a sign that the suitors will all die, and everybody just kind of like laughs him off, which happened quite frequently in the Iliad as well.
Yeah, though it does feel a little bit more in this book like instead of some people believing in the sign and some people being skeptical, it feels more like the majority of people are skeptical. Like it's the old forgotten magic.
Right.
And like no one cares about that.
Right.
No one cares about old man things.
Yeah.
Right. In a more like in the ironic way where it's like it will come to bite you on the butt eventually,
Yeah, actually, I want to read you a footnote. So this is a footnote that was inserted not by Pope, but by a later editor, but it is quoting a commentary by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who was a very famous English poet. This is Coleridge's observation about the luxury of the suitors and the sort of excess by which they are sort of, partaking of Telemachus's house and home. It cannot be denied that the Odyssey does also betray the fact of an advance in the refinement, or at least in the complication of society, and there is a sort of conflict observable in many parts of the poem between the genuine heroic manners and the apparently encroaching habits of a more modern system. Telemachus, Pisistratus, and the court of Alcinous, and the suitors of Penelope seem removed to the third or fourth generation from the godlike warriors who fought on the plains of Troy. They appear as much astonished at the strength and courage of those heroes as we are ourselves, and there is a confession of inferiority and degeneracy in the Odyssey, which forms a striking contrast with the haughty and successful pretensions so often asserted in the Iliad. So yeah, he's at least positing that I think is what we've been hinting at, is like there seems to be this general straying from these sort of lofty ideals of honor and heroism and glory and grandeur that are present in the Iliad, and the sort of like kids these days don't understand those things. And right, Athena is trying to elevate Telemachus to that, right? She's like, you are the son. You could be the next Ulysses of this age if you so choose, but you also could just stoop low and then, be like all these other people who have sort of lost that.
Yeah, Antinous is sort of, and the suitors, they are like a warless generation, like because they haven't been called to be great in any way. Right. They are soft, and all they're left with, like they're all bark no bite. Yeah. They carry with them like the Achilles-like assertion that they are great, right? Like that, the inner belief that they are sort of great, but they have never like put their mettle to the test, And so Telemachus going on his journey is his moment to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because right, like basically everybody, especially all the males left on Ithaca, were either at the start of the war too young, like Telemachus and like all the suitors, they were like children, and now they're sort of, you know, young adults, or they were too old and they're really old, or they might be about Odysseus's age and they didn't go to war for whatever reason, and so they're the unwarlike men who are still there as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, everybody there is separate from the warrior type for sometimes unavoidable reasons, like they're too old or too young, or by, like choosing not to have gone, or,
Yeah. This does remind me of like another thread to follow as we read the Odyssey is paying attention to when Odysseus encounters other cultures, other peoples, paying attention to what that culture's relationship to war is. Also, their relationship to agriculture and food will also come up. Basically, paying attention to like how easy does this group of people have it? So, because we will get just like the suitors, they don't have to give anything to, you know, eat all of the sheep and pigs, right, of the house. Like they neither like toil in the field or toil at war, right? And so paying attention to other cultures and like what their relationship is to like both those different types of like physical work is something to pay attention to, I think.
Yeah. Another moment that I don't think is directly related, but maybe we can tie it into the question of like Athena preparing Telemachus for success, is Antinous' sort of revelation of Penelope's schemes. Again, we talked about this sort of indirectly last episode. Yeah, now we sort of get Antinous sort of formally describing and kind of outing Penelope for her tricks, as I think he is presenting it as evidence that they are kind of justified in their behavior. And I have to admit, like, they kind of have a point. Like, they believe that the king of their place, like the king of their territory, is dead.
Yeah.
And so one of them has a right to the throne. None of them are trying to like necessarily force Penelope into marrying them specifically. They're trying to get Penelope to choose one of them or to simply leave and go home back to her fatherland. And Antinous reveals that Penelope has been like stalling for 3 years. Like, it kind of is a lot.
No, I know. And
that doesn't, again, justify their behavior, and they're quite frankly stealing from Telemachus. But like, I kind of get it.
I think that's, I mean, it's pretty understandable. Like, again, like we talked about last episode, like everything is out of whack. And like, if Penelope would just make a decision, like if she would just kind of release the house from this limbo state, then things would probably be better in some way. And it's going on a long time. Another thing I wanted to mention, Antinous, when he's talking about like this scheme Penelope's been putting on, he says that like, when the 4th year seasons rolled around, a woman slave who knew the truth told us. And I just know that that's going to be Mia Goth in the movie. Like, I'm trying to look for more hints that like Penelope's sort of handmaidens have been also being a little schemy as well, because of some stuff that happens at the end. Like, I'm trying to look for evidence that the maids are not faultless.
Yeah. Or again, like, this is the moment that Margaret Atwood in the Penelope ad would sort of like has revealed in her version that like this maid was sort of like in on the plan with Penelope somehow. And this was all a part of Penelope's kind of big scheme.
Yeah. But this nameless woman slave does seem to be a little bit of like a double agent in this.
Yeah. At least that's how Antinous is presenting it. Like, there was one of Penelope's maidservants, who was disloyal to her, betrayed her secret to us, And so we now know the truth that she's been intentionally stalling. And yeah, like she needs to make a decision.
I want to talk a little bit about the how Antinous describes Penelope.
Yes.
Yeah. So he says to Telemachus, "Go blame your precious mother. She is cunning. It is the 3rd year, soon will be 4, that she has cheated us of what we want." And then he goes on to describe how she weaves and then unweaves. It is also she's weaving and unweaving what would be a burial shroud for Laertes, Odysseus' very old father, which I feel like that might become relevant. There's a lot of burial imagery within the Odyssey, and so I just find that interesting that it's not like Grover in Sea of Monsters. It's not like she's not weaving something that has to do with a wedding or nuptials in any way. It's specifically like a burial shroud. Once the burial shroud, like it kind of also is like, when is Laertes going to die? I feel like might also be this, like, he's very old, yet he is not in charge. And he's also not dead. So he also is in like this limbo state.
Yeah.
And you could almost say that, like, we haven't gotten him on screen, you could say. But I could see him like being one of those old guys who is like hanging on, waiting for Odysseus to return home. And like when that comes to fruition, he will finally like let go.
Yeah.
You know?
But I do think there's another interesting potential aspect to Penelope doing this, because by sort of so reverently weaving a funeral shroud for Laertes, she is asserting that, like, I am part of this family.
Yeah.
Like, right.
This is still my father-in-law.
Right. Like, if Odysseus is dead, then she actually has no ties to Ithaca. Like, she's only tied in by marriage. And if her husband is dead, then yeah, she has no claim to the family or the household or anything like that. But by sort of doing this, she is saying, like, yeah, like, this is my father-in-law. I'm honoring him because he is still my father-in-law, because I'm still married to Odysseus. And like, there's this subtle, like, I'm part of this family. Like, you can't just kick me out because this is my house.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about the word that Emily Wilson translates as cunning.
Richmond Lattimore translates as greatly resourceful. We enter into our little unit we call Greek time.
Yep, it's time for Greek time.
So, the adjective that is used to describe here, that is also used to describe Penelope elsewhere in this book, is kerdos. I'm going to read multiple different definitions of kerdos. So, number 1 is gains or profits. Number 2 is advantage, profit, service, things like this. Number 3 is a device or a plan. And number 4 is like cunning arts, cunning, craft, or guile. Number 5 is like shrewd or sage counsel or devices, sagacity, astuteness, intelligence, and these sorts of things. So it starts the first definition that it gives you as profit, and then you can kind of slowly see the connection to sort of cunningness.
Yeah, all those definitions kind of point to, like, it's not just sneaky for sneaky's sake. It implies that it is like a scheme with a specific end in mind.
And that specific end is one's own self-benefit.
Yeah. Which, again, like, I think points to, like, Penelope, like Odysseus, like, they are, I think, extremely similar in kind of their temperament. Like, they are both always doing things, like, kind of for their own ends. The only situation where they're not doing that is maybe if it in some way benefits the other person. But I mean, like, I feel like you can, like, almost use the word selfish to, like, describe their actions a lot of the times. And I think also, like, I guess that's where I'm kind of like, I definitely understand where, like, the suitors are coming from. Like, the frustration they feel, the frustration Telemachus feels, like, I think is all very valid. It just so happens that I think, for some reason, narratively, like, I'm on Penelope's side, right? Like, also because I do know Odysseus is alive. Like, that's my perspective as the reader. Like, I know he's still alive. And so I'm, like, happy she's holding on.
Right.
You know? And I like seeing that this character has agency and those kinds of things.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that we found in our research into this word is not related to the word itself, but to the way it's used in Homer. So the other great thing about this dictionary from Cunliffe, because it's so keyed to Homer specifically, basically in every definition, he references every single time it's used in either the Iliad or the Odyssey. And he tries to sort of, when there's multiple definitions, he sort of categorizes this definition he is interpreting as being used here, here, and here. And so what we did was we just sort of skimmed through every other time this word kerdos is used to describe some character throughout the Odyssey. And at different times, it is used to describe Penelope here. It is also used at some times to describe Odysseus. A couple times it is used to describe Telemachus. And on a few occasions, it is used about Athena. And so all four of these characters that we kind of have been focusing on so far, they all at some point have this trait attributed to them.
Yeah.
And I think that shows in a positive way the familial connection between them. And obviously that also connects back to this idea of like, why is Athena like helping so much, is because she clearly like values this trait because she has it herself. And so, there's familial resemblance among Penelope, Odysseus, and Telemachus, and also in Athena, who is sort of like their patron goddess in that way.
Yeah.
So another interesting aspect to me, as the sort of after the assembly kind of falls apart and Athena, disguised as mentor, is like working with Telemachus to come up with this plan to get a boat and everything, the very end of the book, there's an interesting scene where Telemachus goes into like the basement storage rooms and finds Eurycleia, who is a very old maid. And he basically gives her two instructions. One is like practical instructions, like, hey, can you get these supplies ready to load up on the ship? We need this much flour and this much wine and these kinds of things. But then he also tells her what he's doing and directly asks her to not tell his mom until he has been gone for like 12 days. And I find this really interesting because it seems, well, it is just like an utter act of defiance of his mother when we have thought about them as very similar and sharing a lot. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts of why do you think Telemachus goes around his mother for this plan rather than involving her in this plan?
Yeah, I mean, one of the main reason, I guess, is just that she would try to stop him. Because like we talked about last episode, Telemachus is kind of like the last little barrier between like without him there, it feels like all chaos is going to break loose. It doesn't seem like they communicate about anything. It doesn't, I don't get the vibe that they, have been like he isn't in on her plans.
Right.
And so like her weaving and unweaving plans. And so I feel like from his perspective, he's like, well, I'm not involved in her schemes. Why should she be involved in mine?
Yeah.
And a literal goddess has told me to go on this journey and is accompanying me. There's like really no reason why he should not go. And he has a lot of affection for what's her name?
Eurycleia.
Yeah, Eurycleia. I don't know. In some ways, I could see him feeling like she has been more present in his life than maybe Penelope has been, in terms of like as that like maid role, like being more motherly to him than his actual mother. And so I could see the interaction they have as being just as good as telling his mom, Yeah,
because I do think there is, to be as generous as possible, he also seems to want to avoid as much sort of hardship or grief on his mother's part as possible. Like, he doesn't want to tell her because he's afraid she'll stop him, but he doesn't also want to just leave. He tells Eurycleia, like, I do want you to tell my mom after 12 days because I don't want her basically to be worried about me. Yeah. And so there is like some affection, or at least like sense of obligation there. But yeah, I find it interesting that, right, in many ways, Telemachus and Penelope are very similar, but it is actually clear that they're actually probably not super close, despite their similarities.
Yeah. Yeah, I was imagining, like, if they interacted where he was like, I'm going to go in a ship, a journey on the ocean. And she would be like, the ocean? That's where your dad got lost.
Yeah.
You know, like, and, you know, she has been, you know, whether it's real or maybe an act, in the first book, when we saw her, she was very emotional. Mm-hmm. And so, again, it could be an act, but I could see Telemachus not being in on the act and being like, I can't with my mom. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to be a whole thing.
That's a good point.
You know?
Yeah, if her over-the-top grief is feigned, but is feigned really well, yeah, Telemachus actually might kind of think that, like, my mom is not sort of acting rationally. She is sort of overwhelmed with emotion. And, yeah, I can't involve her in a plan because he doesn't see her as intelligent and scheming. And, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think, let me read this paragraph. So Eurycleia says to Telemachus, "Sweet child, what gave you this idea? Why do you want to go so far? You are an only child and dearly loved. The king Odysseus is gone, lost, far from home, and they will plot against you when you leave, scheming to murder you and share this wealth. Stay with us, we who love you. Do not go searching for danger out on restless seas." I think this kind of ties into, we've been wanting to talk about the meaning of Telemachus's name. Mm-hmm. And what it might symbolize for, like, kind of what he has to do.
Yeah.
You talk about that?
Yeah. So this is a little meaning Greek time. Telemachus, two parts of his name, tele, telephone, telemarketing, telepathy in English means from a distance. So telephone is sound from a distance. Telepathy is feeling from a distance. So distance, and then Machus is related to the word for war. So basically his name is like war from afar.
Yeah, and that with conjunction with this paragraph is just kind of this idea that, like, Telemachus is fighting the war from afar, in a sense. Like, he's not going to Troy, you know, like his father and, like, the great men before him did. But he is kind of fighting his own war, his own battle here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, because I think that ties right back to your opening question, right? Of, like, Athena has set up that, like, you have the potential to be just like your father, but you have to, like, do this and be successful at it. And he seems to, like, be more and more embracing this. So, like, yes, I do have to sort of go make a name for myself. I have to be out in the world. I can't just stay home. Mm-hmm. I can never be great if I simply, like, stay at my house my whole life.
Yeah.
And so he seems to have that sort of, like, urge for his own journey. Mm-hmm. Whereas Eurycleia has the sort of urge to sort of stay rooted and center and just sort of like, we've given up hope on Odysseus, and so let's just kind of stay here and make things right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the idea that, like, when great men go to war, the final battle that has to be fought is the one to get back home, mm-hmm. you know? And Telemachus has been fighting on the home front.
Yeah.
You know, or he's starting to fight on the home front now. And therefore, like, that war from a distance or from afar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think there is, again, this a little bit aspect of maybe arrogance or at least confidence, because Telemachus kind of does know that this journey is blessed by Athena, mm-hmm. that he's, like, fairly confident he'll be okay. Where, like, from Eurycleia's perspective, I think she's right. She's like, if you go, like, yeah, the suitors will be scheming. It's dangerous out on the ocean. Like, you could die out there, or it'll give the chance for the suitors to do something back here. Like, there's a lot of things that can go bad. And she is right about that. But Telemachus is also right in knowing that, like, well, yeah, but, like, if Athena is, like, telling me I should do this and she's, like, going to help me, then, like, it's probably going to be okay. Like, he has a little bit, I think, of that self-awareness to know, like, he has plot armor, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there's, like, a little bit of, like, he knows he has plot armor. So one last sort of question I have for myself that I think I have thoughts on is, you know, when you are on any sort of, like, hero's journey type thing, how much of the sort of reward comes from you sort of struggling through the reward in a way that would be negated if you were sort of severely helped through that, or how much of the reward is simply the result of doing the thing, even if you are helped? Because, again, like, your initial question seemed to to imply that, like, if Athena is helping him, does he really earn his great success? And I tend to think that he still will, just in thinking about so many other stories that obviously take place after the Odyssey, but that still follow that same thing, right? Like the Lord of the Rings is a phenomenal example of like the hobbits, and Frodo is like ultimately very successful, but he is successful precisely because of the help of the rest of the fellowship. And even in the last moments, because Sam is willing to carry him up the mountain. Or like in Harry Potter, like it's very clear that he only is able to do what he does because he has Ron and Hermione and Dumbledore and on all these other people helping him. There are so many stories of heroes learning that like, I can't actually do this alone. I do need help. And it's actually like in figuring out how to do this with a team that makes me sort of the most successful. And so in that case, like having the support and being aware of the support that you have and kind of acknowledging that you're doing this with help is actually like fundamental to gaining the reward.
That actually does tie in quite well to the text, because like, so at different moments, there's a moment when Telemachus mentions like when they're in the square, he says like, I have not been trained in fighting. Like I can't like physically fight against the suitors. And then he breaks down crying like in that whole thing. And then there's a separate part when Antinous is speaking later, he says like, even if Odysseus was to return home, what would one man do against all of us? It would not be a happy homecoming. We could take him out, is what he's saying. And so those two things combined, like Telemachus realizes that he can't do it by himself. And the suitors think that, at least the suitors think, Odysseus can't, walk back into Ithaca and take back his kingdom on his own either. And spoilers, like Telemachus and Odysseus do have to work together.
With a couple other people.
With other people.
And Athena.
To pull it all off.
Right.
So, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And because I was also thinking back when we did our special episode about the Sea of Monsters, and, right, like, when we think about Percy Jackson as a sort of potential stand-in for Odysseus as, like, person out on a journey on the ocean, you brought up the point that like, yeah, but he has Annabeth with him. And in many ways, Annabeth is the sort of source of many of those plans. Yeah. And right, I think in the same way, Athena is the source of many of the sort of supports that Odysseus gets and things like that. And I don't think that like is a bad thing. I don't think that lessens the heroism of Percy to have Annabeth's help, or of Odysseus to have Athena's help, or Telemachus to have Athena's help.
Yeah, but when we were reading the Iliad, we definitely had I feel like we were definitely singing a different tune. We were definitely like, this guy totally was just helped and he would have died otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, I think like something about the text in the Odyssey, like we just root for Odysseus. Like, I don't know how, like the narrative manages to make us root for this guy who, he's not the best guy. He's not he's not the hero with the heart of gold.
Right.
But yet the narrative, really wants us to want him to win. And that's another thing that let's keep track of as we continue to read the Odyssey. Like, what do we feel about Odysseus? Do we feel like we're on his side? Do we feel like, what do we feel about him versus like what is like actually happening? Like, and weighing like our feelings versus like his actions.
Yeah.
And just paying attention to that.
And I think the other thing I want to keep track of too is both like how much help are these characters, both Telemachus and Odysseus, getting, but also how aware are they of that help?
Yeah.
And how kind of acknowledging of that. Because again, I think the other thing that I noticed throughout Telemachus' speech, he is constantly appealing to the gods. He's like, sort of, may the gods bless my revenge, or these sorts of things. Like, he is a very pious person, and he is kind of inviting the gods to help him, and then Athena is helping him. And so I think it's easy to root for Telemachus because he does seem to be like asking for help and receiving the help that he is asking for in a genuine way. And I think that makes him sort of, likable. And it makes me not sort of discount his growth, even though it is heavily, heavily supported by Athena.
Yeah.
But it's like, because he asked for it, he seems to be looking and admitting that he needs this help. Like, it feels more worthy of it. Okay, well, in book 3, Telemachus will go off on his journey and begin speaking to his father's comrades. So if you would like to follow along, I have recorded an audiobook of Book 3 of Samuel Butler's translation of the Odyssey, or you can read it on your own in any other translation if you have, or just tune in because we'll summarize and we'll talk about it from there.
Yeah. And if you perchance are wondering, what else do these people read when they're not reading the Odyssey? We have a mini podcast over on Patreon called Chonkers. So check that out if you are not done listening to us speak.
And if you want to be a part of the rest of this journey throughout the Odyssey, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps us out a lot. And we would love to have you read along with us.
Yes. Please join us on our Odyssey. And we will see you next time. Until then,
Happy reading.
happy reading.